The pounding on my garage door sounded like someone was trying to break it down with a sledgehammer. I set down my coffee and walked toward the noise, already knowing who it would be. Through the window, I could see Patricia Dalton, our HOA president, red-faced and screaming something about a stolen vehicle. Her son Tyler stood behind her, arms crossed, wearing that smug expression I'd come to despise over the past 3 weeks. "Open this door immediately." Patricia's voice pierced through the metal. "I know you're hiding stolen property in there. The police are already on their way." I couldn't help but smile at that last part. If only she knew. I grabbed my badge from the counter, clipped it to my belt, and opened the front door instead of the garage. The look on her face when she saw me standing there, calm as could be, was almost worth all the harassment. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. 3 weeks ago, I moved into this neighborhood in Riverside Heights. I'd just been promoted to chief of police for the city, and after 20 years of apartment living, I finally bought my first house. Nothing fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom with a 2-car garage perfect for my pride and joy. A 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429 in grabber blue. I'd spent 5 years restoring that car with my late father. Every bolt, every panel, every detail was perfect. It wasn't just a car, it was the last project we'd finished together before cancer took him. I'd driven it exactly 3 times since moving in, each time drawing appreciative looks from most neighbors. Most, but not all. Patricia Dalton lived 4 houses down with her 17-year-old son Tyler. From day one, she made it clear she ran this neighborhood like her personal kingdom. The first time I met her, she handed me a 3-inch binder labeled HOA Guidelines and Expectations, and informed me that my moving truck had been parked 2 inches over the approved time limit. "We run a tight ship here in Riverside Heights," she'd said, her bleached blonde hair perfectly styled despite the 90-degree heat. "I trust you'll be a compliant addition to our community." I'd smiled, taken the binder, and said nothing about my job. I prefer to keep my professional life separate from my personal life, and I certainly didn't need neighbors treating me differently because of my position. The trouble started the second week. I was in the garage, detailing the Mustang's chrome, when Tyler appeared. The kid walked right up my driveway like he owned it, designer sneakers squeaking on the concrete. "Sweet ride," he said, running his hand along the fender without asking. "V8. 429 Cobra Jet," I replied, gently moving his hand away. "Just finished waxing that spot." His eyes lit up with that particular gleam I'd seen too many times before. The gleam that said, "I want this and I usually get what I want." "You should let me take it for a spin," Tyler said. "I'm an excellent driver. Got my license last month." I almost laughed. A 17-year-old with a month of driving experience behind the wheel of a 400-horsepower muscle car? Not in this lifetime. "Sorry, son. This car doesn't leave the garage unless I'm driving it." Tyler's face darkened. "My dad pays a lot in HOA fees." Like, a lot. That basically means he owns part of this street. So technically, that makes me part owner of everything on it. The logic was so twisted I had to take a moment to process it. That's not how property ownership works. "We'll see about that," Tyler muttered, storming off. 20 minutes later, Patricia was at my door. She'd changed into what I can only describe as her battle outfit: pressed white pants, a blazer with an HOA pin, and heels that clicked aggressively on my porch. "Mr. Morrison," she began, not bothering with pleasantries. "My son tells me you were quite rude to him. I told him he couldn't drive my car, if that's what you mean." Her lips pursed into a thin line. Tyler is a very responsible young man. When he shows interest in something, it's only neighborly to accommodate him. We're a community here. "Ma'am, that's a vintage muscle car worth more than most people's annual salary. I don't let anyone drive it." "Well," she sniffed, "we'll have to see if that vehicle even complies with HOA regulations. I'll be reviewing the guidelines tonight." And review she did. Over the next week, I received a series of increasingly ridiculous violation notices. The car was too loud, even though I'd never started it when she was around. The color was too bright and could distract drivers. My favorite claimed the car constituted a commercial vehicle because it could potentially be used for racing. I responded to each notice with the patience of a saint, citing the actual HOA bylaws that proved none of her claims had merit. This only made her angrier. The situation escalated when Tyler returned the following Saturday, this time with 2 friends. I was mowing the lawn when they approached. "Hey, Mr. Morrison," Tyler called out, his tone artificially friendly. "Me and my boys were wondering if you'd reconsider about the car. Maybe just a quick ride around the block." The answer's still no, Tyler. One of his friends, a bulky kid in a football jersey, stepped forward. "Come on, man. Don't be such a hard ass. What's it gonna hurt?" "Hey now," I said, my voice carrying the authority of 2 decades in law enforcement. "You boys need to head on home. This conversation's over." They left, but not before Tyler shot me a look that promised this wasn't over. Sure enough, an hour later, Patricia was back, this time with her husband Richard in tow. Richard looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, but he stood behind his wife as she launched into a tirade. "You threatened my son and his friends," she shrieked. "Richard is a lawyer, you know. We could sue you for emotional distress." Richard winced slightly at that, but said nothing. I'd looked him up. He was a tax attorney who probably hadn't seen the inside of a courtroom in years. "Ma'am, I asked them to leave my property. That's well within my rights. We'll see what the HOA board has to say about this." Patricia spun on her heel and marched off, Richard trailing behind with an apologetic shrug. The next HOA meeting was apparently quite the show. I didn't attend, but my next-door neighbor, Janet, filled me in. Patricia had spent 40 minutes discussing the dangerous element that had moved into the neighborhood, complete with a PowerPoint presentation about the dangers of street racing culture. She actually used the word hooligan, Janet laughed. Said your car was attracting the wrong element. I pointed out that the only people bothering you were her and Tyler, but she didn't appreciate that. The harassment continued. I'd find notes on my windshield. My garbage cans would mysteriously tip over on trash day. Someone even called the city to report my grass was half an inch too long. Then came the day everything exploded. It was a Saturday morning, and I was enjoying coffee in my kitchen when I heard voices in my driveway. Through the window, I could see Tyler with his friends again, this time taking selfies with my car through the garage window. I stepped outside. "Tyler, you need to leave. Now." "It's just pictures, bro," he said. "For Instagram. My followers love sick rides. Get off my property. I won't ask again." Tyler's face flushed red. "You know what? Screw you. That car should be mine anyway. You're too old to appreciate it. You probably can't even drive it properly." "Tyler," I said, my voice dropping to what my officers call my chief voice, "leave now, or I'll call the police." He laughed. "My mom already did. She said you stole this car. Said she looked up the registration and it doesn't match your name." I sighed. Patricia had apparently discovered the car was still registered under my father's name. I'd been meaning to transfer it, but hadn't gotten around to the paperwork yet. "Yeah," Tyler continued, emboldened. "She said the cops are gonna impound it, and then maybe someone who deserves it can buy it at auction." That's when we heard the sirens. 3 patrol cars came screaming down our quiet street, lights blazing. Patricia emerged from her house, phone in hand, looking triumphant. "Officers!" she called out as the first car stopped. "He's right there. The thief is right there." I recognized the officers immediately. Martinez and Davidson from the day shift, followed by Thompson and the rookie, Patel. The look on Martinez's face when he saw me standing there was priceless. "Chief Morrison," Martinez said, his voice a mix of confusion and concern. "Morning, Martinez," I replied casually. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Patricia's mouth fell open. "Chief? What do you mean, Chief?" Davidson stepped forward, trying to keep his face professional. "Ma'am, this is Chief Morrison. He's our boss. The chief of police for the entire city." The color drained from Patricia's face. Tyler took several steps backward, suddenly very interested in his phone. Richard, who had just arrived, looked like he wanted to sink into the pavement. But the car, Patricia stammered. The registration doesn't match. I checked. The car belonged to my father, I explained calmly. He passed away 6 months ago. I inherited it, but haven't transferred the title yet. Would you like to see the will and death certificate? I didn't. Patricia was literally shaking now. Martinez, I said, I'd like you to take a full report. This woman called 911 to make a false report about a stolen vehicle. She's also been harassing me for 3 weeks because I wouldn't let her son drive my personal vehicle. Yes, sir, Martinez said, pulling out his notepad. Wait, Patricia cried. I didn't know. It was a mistake. You called 911 and reported a stolen vehicle, I said evenly. You stated you had checked the registration. That's not a mistake. That's a deliberate false report. Thompson had activated his body camera and was now facing Tyler. Young man, were you involved in this? Tyler, trying to act tough in front of his friends, made the mistake of opening his mouth. Yeah, so what? He's been a dick since he moved in. Thinks he's better than us. Tyler, shut up. Richard finally spoke, but it was too late. My mom runs this neighborhood. Tyler continued, his voice getting louder. She could buy and sell you. When my dad hears about this, you'll be sorry. We'll sue the whole police department. Patel, the rookie, looked at me with wide eyes. I nodded for him to continue recording. Within an hour, the street was filled with neighbors watching the spectacle. Patricia was cited for filing a false police report and misuse of emergency services. Tyler was warned about trespassing and harassment. The entire incident was captured on multiple body cameras. This is ridiculous. Patricia shrieked as Martinez handed her the citation. I'm on the HOA board. I keep this neighborhood safe. Ma'am, I said quietly, you weaponized the police because your son wanted my car. You wasted city resources and could have diverted officers from real emergencies. That's not keeping anyone safe. Richard finally found his voice. Patricia, we need to go. Now. He looked at me with genuine fear in his eyes. Chief Morrison, I'm deeply sorry. This won't happen again. As they walked away, I heard Patricia hissing at her husband about calling their lawyer, about suing for embarrassment, about how I'd regret this. Tyler sulked behind them, his bravado completely deflated. Janet appeared at my elbow as the patrol cars pulled away. Well, that was quite the show. Just wanted a quiet Saturday, I said. Oh, you're not done yet, Janet grinned. Wait until the HOA board hears about this. Patricia's got an emergency meeting called for tomorrow night. My guess? She won't be president much longer. She was right. The body camera footage was requested through public records within days. Someone, I never found out who, posted clips online, and they went viral. Entitled HOA President Calls Cops on Police Chief, garnered millions of views. Tyler's rant about his parents buying and selling people became a meme. At the emergency HOA meeting, Patricia tried to maintain control, but the writing was on the wall. Neighbors who had suffered under her reign for years finally had the courage to speak up. Story after story of petty harassment, arbitrary fines, and abuse of power filled the room. The vote was unanimous. Patricia was removed from the HOA board effective immediately. As she stood to leave, she turned to face the room one last time. You'll all regret this, she said, her voice breaking. I made this neighborhood what it is. No, said Janet, standing up. You made this neighborhood a dictatorship. Now we can finally make it a community. Patricia fled the room in tears. Richard stayed behind to apologize to everyone and mentioned they would be putting their house on the market. The false police report charge came with a $1,000 fine and 50 hours of community service. When Patricia appeared in court, Judge Hendricks, who I'd known for 15 years, was particularly unimpressed with her excuse that she was just being a concerned citizen. Mrs. Dalton, he said, looking over his glasses. You admitted to checking the registration, finding a discrepancy, and immediately calling 911 without any attempt to verify your suspicions. You then told officers the vehicle was stolen. That's not concern, that's malicious intent. Patricia's lawyer tried to argue for dismissal, but the body camera footage was damning. When the judge announced the fine and community service, she gasped audibly. $1,000? For one phone call. Plus court costs, Judge Hendricks added. And consider yourself fortunate I'm not adding jail time. Wasting police resources is a serious offense. As she left the courtroom, Patricia's face was a mask of shock and humiliation. The woman who had ruled Riverside Heights with an iron fist had been brought down by her own entitlement and her son's greed.